If you've ever felt confused about why she lost respect for you even though you were kind, available, and trying your best, this is the moment you've been waiting for. What I'm about to tell you isn't flattering, but it can save you years of emotional erosion. I'm speaking to you as a psychologist, not to shame you, but to tell you a truth most men never hear early enough. Attraction doesn't die because you set boundaries. It dies because you don't. The first boundary you must set, early and calmly, is how you value your time. Many men believe availability equals devotion. So they answer every message instantly, rearrange their schedules, cancel plans, and wait. On the surface, it looks generous. Psychologically, it signals something else entirely. When your time has no structure, it has no perceived value. And when your time has no value, neither do your decisions. A woman doesn't consciously think, "I'll disrespect him." Her nervous system simply registers that you are always there, no matter what she does. Desire doesn't grow in a vacuum of self-direction. Healthy attraction requires polarity, and polarity requires that you are already living a life that matters to you. When you say, "I can't tonight, I already have plans," you're not rejecting her, you're respecting yourself. The men who hold their time with intention are not colder, they're clearer, and clarity feels safe. The second boundary is emotional responsibility. This one is subtle, and it's where many good men slowly disappear. You are not her therapist, her regulator, or her emotional container for every unresolved feeling. Support is healthy. Absorption is not. When you take responsibility for emotions that are not yours, you silently teach her that your role is to manage her inner world. Over time, that creates imbalance. And imbalance erodes attraction faster than conflict ever could. A grounded man listens without fixing, cares without rescuing, and stays present without collapsing himself. When you say, "I understand you're upset, and I trust you to work through this," you're not withdrawing love. You're expressing confidence in her and in yourself. Emotional maturity isn't carrying everything. It's knowing what's yours to carry. The third boundary is how you tolerate disrespect, especially small, casual disrespect. Sarcasm disguised as humor, repeated lateness without acknowledgement, dismissive tones followed by, "I was just joking." These moments are tests, not traps, and they're not about dominance, they're about safety. When you calmly say, "That doesn't work for me," without anger or apology, you show her that you notice how you're treated and that you matter. Here's the truth most men don't realize. Boundaries don't push the right woman away. They filter out the wrong dynamic, and the sooner you set them, the less you'll ever need to defend them. The fourth boundary you must set early is around effort and reciprocity. This is where many men unknowingly train a woman to take them for granted. You give more. You initiate everything. You plan. You check in. You apologize first. You adjust. At first, it feels like leadership. Over time, it becomes self-erasure. And here's the psychological reality. People value what they participate in creating. When she doesn't invest effort, her attachment weakens, not because she's cruel, but because her nervous system isn't engaged. A healthy dynamic requires friction, not force. When you allow imbalance to continue unchecked, you silently communicate that your needs are optional. And once your needs are optional, respect becomes conditional. Setting this boundary doesn't mean keeping score or acting distant. It means noticing patterns and responding with self-respect. You stop over-explaining, you pause initiating, you allow space for her to step forward, or not. And whatever she chooses tells you everything you need to know. Men often fear that pulling back effort will make her leave. But the truth is sharper. If she only stays when you overextend, she was never staying for you, only for what you provided. A man who values himself doesn't chase connection, he responds to it. The fifth boundary is about your standards, especially when it comes to how you're spoken to and how conflict is handled. Disagreements are inevitable. Disrespect is optional. Raised voices, insults, threats of leaving, emotional shutdowns, these are not passion. They are nervous system dysregulation. When you tolerate chaos in the name of love, you teach her that intensity replaces accountability. A grounded man doesn't match volatility. He doesn't punish. He doesn't beg. He says, calmly and clearly, "I'm open to talking when we can both be respectful." And if the behavior continues, he doesn't debate his boundary. He enforces it with distance. This is not manipulation. This is consistency. And consistency is what creates trust. Here's what's rarely said out loud. Many women are not consciously trying to dominate a man. They are unconsciously responding to his lack of self-definition. When you don't define your limits, someone else will define them for you, and they will not do it in your favor. Boundaries are not walls. They are instructions. They teach others how to love you without losing you. And when a woman senses that you are rooted, self-directed, and unwilling to abandon yourself for approval, something shifts. She either rises to meet you, or she removes herself. Both outcomes are wins, because the goal isn't to keep every woman. The goal is to keep your dignity intact while building something mutual. The right woman doesn't fear your boundaries. She relaxes into them. She feels safer knowing where you stand. And the man who understands this never has to demand respect. He quietly lives in a way that makes disrespect impossible. There's a deeper reason boundaries change everything, and it has nothing to do with control. It has to do with identity. When a man doesn't know where he ends, he becomes emotionally porous. He absorbs moods, adapts personalities, and reshapes himself to avoid loss. On the surface, it looks like flexibility. Psychologically, it reads as instability. And instability is the fastest way to lose attraction, even with a woman who genuinely likes you. One of the most overlooked boundaries is your sense of self. Your opinions, your preferences, your no. Many men soften these early because they're afraid of friction. They agree when they disagree. They laugh when something bothers them. They stay silent when something crosses a line. Each time this happens, you train yourself to disappear, and you train her nervous system to feel like she's standing on shifting ground. Attraction needs something solid to lean against. A man who can say, "I see it differently," without anger or defensiveness is rare. That calm self-trust signals emotional adulthood. It tells her you're not trying to win her approval. You're inviting her into your world. And here's the paradox. The more you stop trying to be chosen, the more choosable you become. Another critical boundary is sexual pacing. This one makes many men uncomfortable because it challenges the idea that desire means access. Just because attraction exists doesn't mean everything should be rushed. When you let sexual momentum replace emotional clarity, you blur roles before trust is built. And when roles are blurred, power struggles begin. A man who can slow things down, not because he lacks desire, but because he values discernment, signals strength. This isn't about withholding, it's about intentionality. When you say, "I'm attracted to you and I also want to build this right," you anchor the dynamic in respect. Women who are emotionally healthy respond to this with deeper investment. Women who are not may push, test, or withdraw. Again, both outcomes reveal the truth early. There's also a boundary around how much of your past pain you reveal too soon. Vulnerability is powerful, but timing matters. When you unload unresolved wounds early, you unconsciously ask her to carry emotional weight she didn't consent to. That shifts the dynamic from partnership to caretaking. A man who has processed his pain can share it without bleeding. A man who hasn't will leak it everywhere. Strength isn't pretending you're unhurt. It's knowing your story without being ruled by it. When you own your past calmly, without asking for reassurance, you show emotional integration. And integration is magnetic. The men who are respected long-term aren't louder, colder, or more dominant. They're more anchored. They know what they offer. They know what they tolerate. And they are willing to walk away from anything that requires them to betray themselves. That willingness, quiet, steady, unspoken, is the boundary beneath all others. Here is the boundary that ties all the others together, and it's the one most men never consciously set. The boundary between who you are and who you're willing to become just to be loved. This is where everything either solidifies or collapses. A man who abandons himself to keep a woman never keeps the woman. He only delays the moment she stops respecting him. Not because she's cruel, but because she can feel the cost. On a nervous system level, she senses that being with you requires you to shrink. And no healthy person wants to be the reason someone disappears. This is why the strongest boundary you ever set is your willingness to walk away from dynamics that erode your self-respect. Not dramatically, not as a threat, quietly, internally, when you know, truly know, that you will not negotiate your dignity, your energy changes, your voice slows, your reactions soften, you stop chasing clarity because you already have it. Many men think boundaries are something you explain. In reality, boundaries are something you embody. You don't argue about how you should be treated. You respond to behavior. You adjust access. You remove yourself from confusion. And you do it without hatred, without punishment, and without trying to teach a lesson. The lesson teaches itself. Here's a hard psychological truth. If a woman can sense that losing her would destroy you, attraction begins to suffocate. If she senses that losing her would hurt but not hollow you, respect has room to grow. Independence is not emotional distance, it's emotional wholeness. A man with boundaries doesn't need to control outcomes. He trusts himself to handle whatever outcome arrives. That's why he doesn't beg, threaten, or over-explain. He listens, he observes, and he decides. Decision is the language of self-respect. And when a woman meets a man like this, something profound happens. She relaxes, not because he's rigid, but because he's predictable in the deepest way. His values don't shift based on mood. His standards don't collapse under pressure. His presence feels steady, safe, grounded. That steadiness is rare, and rarity creates value. If she walks away because you set boundaries, she was never walking beside you, only leaning on you. If she stays and rises, you've created something mutual. Either way, you win back something far more important than approval, your sense of self. So here's the question I want you to sit with and answer honestly in the comments. What is one boundary you know you've been avoiding setting because you're afraid of what you might lose? If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe for deeper psychological insight, and share it with a friend who's been giving too much of himself for too little in return.